What is New England's most noted chef doing sailing the seas with a ram on board? Find out next on Chef's Afield. Portland, the largest city in Maine and one of the oldest in the hemisphere, more than 370 years since the first settlers. Now, home to a new and exciting presentation of a traditional cuisine. Chef Sam Hayward, one-time troubadour, who hung up his guitar to turn to the kitchen. Through more than 25 years of cooking, Hayward has come to appreciate Maine all the year round.
I love all seasons. Here we are in the middle of Indian summer in New England, between the hard frost and the first hard snows of winter. And this is one of my favorite times of year. The colors are spectacular. The weather changes by the hour, so we never get bored. And some of the great foodstuffs available to us are coming out of the farms and gardens right now.
If there's one word that Chef Sam Hayward lives by, it's the word local. That's the byword at Sam's restaurant called Fore Street. Grow local, buy local, cook and eat local. Everything served at Fore Street is grown by someone Sam knows, a friend, a neighbor, a fellow lover of the land.
The thrill of being able to serve this kind of food every day in a setting like this is so exciting. I'm the luckiest cook in America.
Sam spends his life close to the land. When he's not in the kitchen, he is on the land.
Looking at this cow, she seems as beamy as an old clipper ship.
Yeah, she is.
Meet sheep herder Lee Straw, also cattleman, chicken breeder, and close friend to Sam Hayward. Lee and his son Aaron manage 300 head of cattle and about as many sheep. But this is no ordinary farm. These sheep are raised in good measure on offshore islands. Roaming free, eating natural, preserving a 300-year tradition, and cultivating a distinctive taste.
You know, the thing about these lambs are that when we get them in the restaurant and everybody in my kitchen staff comes over to see one of us cutting them, everybody's going, whoa, check out the color on this, or the aroma, or, and then when we're cooking them, of course, everybody gets excited. It's an opportunity for us to tell our customers the story of Maine agriculture, the story of this tradition of raising sheep on islands, and most of the people have no idea that this is a tradition that goes back 300 or 400 years.
These sheep are the direct descendants of those brought from the islands of the North Sea.
So you bring them off the island and bring them back to pasture here, which, what does it do? Calm down that gamey, what we think of as a gamey flavor?
Yeah, and some of these will be next year's lamb crop mothers.
Lee, I noticed that this lamb has a pretty dark face.
Yeah, that's a crossbred lamb. Okay. It's half Dorset and half Suffolk. Okay. I use the Dorset because they're heavier milkers and they are very good mothers. The Suffolk gives it the meat qualities.
Are some breeds better suited to the wilds of the Maine Islands?
Yes, delicate sheep like these Friesians or a Finn sheep you wouldn't put out on a Maine island. They're too fine bone. I'm sure after years they'd probably harden up to it. But right now we try to stay with a Cheviot base.
Okay.
Something that's real hardy, can take the severeness.
It's nice to meet you. And you won't be headed for our kitchen.
No, no.
Lucky girl. But what makes the difference? Why are these so different from those Western lambs?
They're not in a feedlot. I think that's probably the big thing, is they're not force-fed. I think if you pen a lamb up and feed it harvested forage and harvested grain, it's going to be a lot different than this grass-fed stuff.
You know, I can't help thinking that there's something else that goes on there, because look at where we are. Look at this pasture, look at the field, smell the air. Everything here is a different
You know, and you can see, you know, the sheep are, for the most part, pretty happy.
For generations, Maine farmers have made this trip. The boats used to be wood with sails and today are fiberglass and motors, but it's the same trip from mainland farm to offshore island where sheep may safely graze.
We're going out about 10 miles out. I've got 2 islands out there. One's a little one, one's a big island where I've got my flock of sheep. On the small island, I keep the rams during the off season. And we do it that way so that they don't get the ewes bred out of season and we have lambs in the middle of winter. We're going out to get a ram off to take home and breed some ewes.
Oh, okay. Is there a specific breed that we're going to pick? What are you looking for?
We're going to pick up a Cheviot ram today.
How are we going to get a ram on this boat? Are we going to have to wrestle it a little bit?
We've got some corrals on the island. We'll run them into that, catch them, and then we'll put them in this dinghy that's tagging along behind us, and we'll bring it alongside the big boat and lift him into this one. And hopefully nobody gets wet.
We're going to get wet.
First stop, a small island. This and a half dozen others belong to the sheep.
So what's going on up here? What are they ganging up for?
Well, something new, something different. They see us, and they're kind of curious.
So then they go over the hill.
And now it's off to inspect the herd. How do they look? Everybody healthy? Eating well?
So is this what they like to eat? I mean, look at this grass.
Yeah, it's all native. Actually, if you look up the species out here, most of it's alpine, which is kind of weird. You know, the mosses.
Yeah.
If you went into the Alps, you'd find pretty much the same thing. Oh, they won't eat it all down to nothing unless you overstocked it. So there's a little management in there as to how many sheep you have and how late you keep the lambs on the island, things like that. We've got a good beach right up here that we get some rockweed up on, and that's what they'll feed on all winter, is that rockweed and seaweed.
Like potato chips for sheep.
Yep. This is the kelp, and that's the stuff they really like. You know, they will eat some of the other stuff, but this is what they really are after. And when we get the surf, northeasters, this is what washes up and they go nuts for it.
I'm not sure how much of a direct flavor of seaweed is lost in translation and how much of it actually comes through in the taste of your lamb. But I definitely got a kind of an oceanic, almost briny quality in the lamb and a sort of a resinous aroma that's really interesting to me.
This has got to be where it comes from. That and the stress-free environment, you know.
All I know is that your lamb is unique. It's a very different flavor from any other lamb that's available to me. And certainly environment, diet, and habitat also have to play a part in that. And I mean, how could you not be healthy and happy in this incredible landscape and seascape?
It's quite a place. It's not bad for the shepherd either.
Oh, I can imagine.
Head down over the hill.
We're off to a neighboring island where the rambunctious males call home. We're off to pick up a ram to take him back to the farm.
Watch your boats, Aaron.
So why did we come out here, Lee?
Well, we've got a ram out here that we want to use to breed our flock of Cheviots at home. So we're going to pull him off today. Normally we just pull him off when we breed the ewes on the island, but I want to get some lambs a little earlier than the island lambs so that we don't have this hole in production, so you don't go without lamb. You can see the rams are there behind you.
Yeah, they're watching.
What we're going to do, Aaron and Claire and I are going to go around behind them. We want to put you at the back of this corral, between the edge of the corral and the shore, so as to keep them from getting down onto the rocks. In theory, they're going to run right down this V, and we'll corner them in this little catch chute.
Okay. That's what you say.
That's what we say. You head down there, get set up, and we'll get around the back of the rams and get the dog moving.
Okay.
Nell, come! Come!
Island Sheep Roundup. You need all the help you can get. Relatives, hired hands, neighbors, a chef, and especially a dog.
There they go. Man, they are in good shape, too.
An ordinary chef stays in his kitchen, but Sam Hayward is out here in the sun and the wind and the salt spray.
Heads up, Aaron! We're trying to get the rams coming into the mouth of the opening of this corral so that they'll go into the box at the end, and then we don't have to wrestle with them.
Good girl,
Ah, okay.
Wow.
That's about it.
So which one are you after?
The one with the bend here, right there, crowding into the middle.
Yep.
That's the pure Cheviot.
That went so well.
You got the rope, Aaron?
Right.
Oh, you got it. All right. You guys want to come in with me and?
Sure. They just want to crowd in together. They want to be one mass.
Yeah, that's what they like.
Aren't you handsome? So this is an opportunity to check them out for general health?
Yeah, feel these guys. They've filled out so much.
Okay, so this is what you're talking about. Wow. That's such a dense wool. I can't believe it.
See, right there is the loin.
Yep, there's the end of it. I can feel the hip bone.
Yep. See the length of the loin, you go from the end of the hip to the back of the rib. Right
So
there.
it's interesting to me that you're actually thinking about those things that we think of every day when we're buying in a restaurant setting. But and it almost feels in some ways sacrilegious to be thinking about this live animal that way. But he's going to make a good dad.
Open it up.
Everything about these lambs is natural, raised close to nature, fending for themselves. No hormones, clean air, innate sensibilities, and hundreds of years of acclimating to the elements.
How are we going to get that ram into that little skiff?
Well, we're going to muscle him up over the edge, kind of roll him into it, and then we'll get him out to the big boat. Somebody on the inside of the big boat will just reach out, grab a hold of him while we pick him up and roll him in.
Okay.
It'll take 2 or 3 of us to get him in there.
Okay.
And somebody will have to hold the boats together.
It's going to be okay. Nothing bad's going to happen to you.
Okay.
These little ram bunches.
You get in the boat. Take him under the seat, hit the rope, and back up around.
This one is like every time?
Sometimes worse.
Seems pretty calm. At least you can't thrash around.
Yeah.
It smells so good.
Pull the rope. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And up. All right.
Good boy.
Went good. I was happy.
A lot better than I expected, but and it was interesting that he was calm enough that we could haul him up.
You know, when they get by themselves, wouldn't be unusual for him to get nutso, but they have kind of a herd mentality. They want to stay bunched right up.
That was great. That was pretty interesting hauling him up out of that little skiff, though. So Lee, what's up next? Where are we headed now?
We'll go back to Port Clyde and put him on the truck and take him home. Okay. And turn him into the ewes, that flock at home.
Okay.
The ewes await the arrival of the ram who lives offshore, coming here to mix and mingle with the females.
Grab my arm. Got it. 1, 2, 3.
That worked slick. How do you call him in, Lee?
Well, usually just, you know, kadak, 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 which is, I don't know where I picked that up from, but any noise that they're used to. Kadak, 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 kadak. Come on, girls.
Say the sound again.
Kadak, 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 kadak.
I feel pretty silly, but kadak, 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 kadak.
Yeah, they're going the other way.
I'm real successful at this. Admittedly, it's really beautiful out here, and it does my heart good just to be on a working farm like this, but it also looks like a huge amount of work. Why do you do this?
It's a good question. You know, there's times when I ask myself that, and you know, because there's a lot of other things I could do, I guess. It's a lifestyle that I enjoy. It's a challenge. You never know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
That sounds familiar.
It's not always a good thing, but it's always challenging, and I'm rarely bored. And it's, you know, it's been a great place to bring up my kids. You kind of go through some motions that you don't have to go through to get lamb. Why do you like to get our lamb?
But I still bring it back to that remarkable taste that makes it so different from anything I've had anywhere else. And it's a part and parcel of Maine. French use that word terroir, which sort of means the taste of the place. And that's definitely there. So once we get people into that story, we can explain why it's different, that they're going down at low tide and eating high-protein kelp and rockweed, and they're living a healthy life out in the open air, and they're free of predators, and they don't have to be fed an artificial diet. And all of that sounds so good and so helpful to me that actually bringing people into that history is very exciting. And it's an opening, an entree for them to, no pun intended, learn a lot about the rest of Maine's foodways and agriculture. And all of that's really interesting to people. The challenge of buying whole lambs the way that we do is that we need to make use of every part of the lamb to make it economically viable for a restaurant like this. And that means we have to look at the individual muscles and see what work they actually do. And that'll determine a lot how we prepare them. For example, here's the rib rack, which everybody is familiar with, probably the most costly and in-demand part of the lamb. Rib bones, the backbone was right along here, and this is the beautiful tender ribeye muscle. So we'll be preparing that as a chop and grilling it on its surfaces to a rare, medium rare temperature. This is the leg. Now we've already taken the liberty of boning out the leg so that we can see all of its muscles. And we who work with this almost every day sort of know the architecture of the lamb really well. The muscle we'll be working with for this preparation is this one right here, which we just call a top. And it's a beautiful muscle, incredibly lean. It's located at the top of the leg right behind the loin. Here's one that I've already cut, and you can see that I've marinated it for about 36 hours, and marination may be the wrong word for this because all we really do is rub it with a little bit of garlic, Maine sea salt, cracked black pepper, a few crushed juniper berries, and some beautiful herbs. I've got lemon verbena and fresh bay leaves, thyme, and summer savory. So that's what we've given them an overnight with in a closed container, and it's just gently aromatized. So it's going to be a subtle flavor. We want to really accentuate the flavor of the lamb because it's so special. So overwhelming it with a lot of extraneous ingredients would not be true to the style that we're trying to accomplish here at Fore Street. Give it a couple of turns with a little butcher twine, just to hold its shape a little bit. This is the spit that we use. I'm going to give it a little bit of olive oil on the spit. The beauty of a turn spit is that it roasts pretty evenly from all sides. We love this in part because when people see it in the dining room, they're curious about what's on it, whether it's a whole chicken or a whole rabbit or a big joint of pork or pieces of lamb like this. And it does get people sort of asking the servers, what is that, what is it? The real reason is that you're cooking in the open air and all sides of the meat are being cooked equally at all times, and that works really well. The other cut that we're going to do are going to be chops cut from the rack of lamb. And what I generally like to do is do two bones to each chop so it's nice and thick. That allows us to really get a beautiful, large core in the center of the chop that's rare or medium rare. It's very difficult to do if you cut them very thin. So I simply count over 2 ribs and go straight through. We have made a decision to leave a lot of the layers of tissue and fat over here on the ends of the bone. Many people will trim that off and laboriously French the bones, which is an old way of preparing rack of lamb that's more about presentation than anything else because you can put those silly little frills on the ends of the bone and pick it up like a little lollipop and nibble on the bones. Well, we encourage people to do that anyway, and you can do it just as easily like this. So we're going to actually leave it just like that when we grill it. Now what I'm going to do is season these ahead of time, and generally what we try to do is let them sit in the cooler overnight after seasoning. That tends to reduce the elasticity of the meat even more, and that's a hint that I pass on to people. Again, this is good Maine sea salt, evaporated right here in Maine, and black pepper. So the lamb is ready. That's been about 20 minutes. I'm going to take it off the spit now as soon as it comes around, and we'll start prepping these. I'm going to give these a little bit of olive oil. I don't want to put too much oil on it because a hot fire like this could actually incinerate the oil, and that would lend a kind of a carbony flavor that I prefer not to get out of it. Again, I don't want anything to interfere with the flavor of the lamb. And you'll see me put the fat down first so we can render some of the fat off and get that searing before we cook it on the sides of the chops. While the lamb is cooking, we'll pull the leg off the spit and let that repose, which will consolidate some of the juices so that when we slice it, the juices won't just pour out of the meat and make it dry and flavorless. In the meantime, I have these beautiful mushrooms. These are called matsutakis. These are harvested from the woods of Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont. Our forager goes out every day looking for mushrooms, and these are one of the best. They have a really rich, piney, almost honey-like aroma, a little bit spicy, and they're really spectacular. I love to cook with them. And this is really good Maine butter. I'm going to simply saute the matsutakis over the hot flame. So you can see that we've been able to successfully sear the fat side of the lamb and render off some of the fat, which just means melting. A little salt and pepper with the matsutakis. By the way, matsutakis like to be sliced really, really thin. Some people find the density of the mushroom a little bit challenging when it's really thick and heavy. This butter is beautiful. It's very yellow, but no artificial colors have been added to it. That's the natural color of grass-fed milk fat. is we like to do things that are part of the Maine tradition, part of the New England way of doing things like beans and lamb together in the same preparation, or wild mushrooms coming out of the woods at the same time of year that lambs are coming off the islands. Sometimes it's just the seasonality itself of things that gives them a commonality and helps them work together on the plate. Oh, look at these. These are beautiful mushrooms. I love that spiciness. One of the traditional woods that people have used for smoking and cooking in Maine for a long time has been apple. This is a world of orchards, and people were always turning their orchards over and planting new trees as they got old. So there was never a scarcity of good apple wood in Maine to use and most of New England to use in cooking. A lot of people like to smoke foods in New England with apple wood, the way that Southerners use hickory and the way Westerners and Southwesterners like to use mesquite. So we sort of feel that apple wood is our wood in New England. Now, over this kind of an intense heat, these lamb chops will cook very quickly. In fact, you can see that as they render off some of their fat, the fat likes to ignite. A certain amount of that provides a really interesting flavor. Too much of it, though, is just nothing but char. So we really have to watch it. Now, once they've been seared like that, I move them to a cooler place on the grill and allow the heat to penetrate more slowly and gently. The whole process of cooking these chops is probably around 8 minutes for rare to medium rare. Probably 10 to 12 minutes for full medium. And if you prefer it done well done, go to another restaurant. Well, I've already made a sauce. A very rustic, simple sauce that's a reduction of lamb stock made from the bones of these lambs, a little bit of the hard apple cider that we make, and aromatic vegetables. But the real flavors we want you to get, of course, are the unique qualities of Lee's lamb. The leg is done. The chops are ready to go. I'm just warming up the leg of lamb piece after it's been reposing for 10 or 15 minutes just to heat up the outside. I've got some beautiful, fresh fall kale from a local garden here in another pot, my sauce, the matsutakis, and now we're going to plate it up. And with the roasted leg of lamb, we cut it across the grain. That's the most important thing for tenderness, but this is really beautiful. I think this is cooked just about exactly the way I'd like to prepare it. I'll put a little bit of this beautiful kale, which was sauteed with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of slivered garlic. I'll put a couple of slices of lamb right over the top of that, and one of the chops. And over here on the side, the matsutakis. Oh, the aromas are great. Give the sauce one last twist to bring it together, and spoon that over the chop and around it on the plate. A tiny sprinkling of the same herbs that we use to marinate the leg, and we're done. We've got the roasted leg of lamb from the turnspit, the chop of lamb here on the side, the matsutakis, kale underneath, and sauce. Small farms all across America are in trouble, and that's not something that's new. That's been going on for decades. What I try to do is make sure that if everybody is buying from local farmers, even if it's only $10 a week, all of that money stays right in your own community and nurtures your own community. That's very important.